Thank you. Good morning to all of you. My name is Liz Herrera. I'm Communications Officer in MARFAN, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to the edition 38 of the MARFAN webinars. Today, we're going to be talking about ECOME, lessons and challenges of regional fish recruitment monitoring in the MAR. This exercise of connectivity in the MAR is an initiative, a scientific initiative with a regional approach to understand the connectivity of fish along the Mesoamerican Reef System, strengthening a scientific base for a sustainable management and conservation. It is a pleasure to have you all here, and today we're going to give a few instructions for this webinar. This session has simultaneous interpretation. To activate, please, in the Zoom controls, you must click on the interpretation icon. Then please click on the language you want to hear. And if you just want to hear the interpreted language, you can click on mute original audio. We also have some basic rules for this meeting so that we can all have a space of learning and respect. During the seminar, please, all microphones and cameras, have your cameras and microphones off. Please write your full name, country, and organization in the chat to know who is joining us today. And if you want to ask any questions or comments, you can add them on the chat. Please make sure it is related to the topic being discussed. These questions will be forwarded to the speakers and answered at the end of the presentation. We want to remind you that the opinions expressed are sole responsibility of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the opinion or position of MARFAN. And now I have the pleasure of presenting Lourdes Vázquez. Lourdes Vázquez is a recognized researcher and marine ecologist that studied biology in the Autonomous University of Baja California and a master's in marine ecology, currently carrying out her PhD in marine science. For over 15 years, Lourdes has been lead researcher at ECOSUR in Chetumal. Throughout her career, she has been in charge of projects with CONAVIO, a binational project between NOAA and ECOSUR, and another project, a trinational project between NOAA, Belize, and Mexico. She is also curator of the marine fish larvae collection of ECOSUR, considered one of the most important collections in the Caribbean. She has published more than 24 scientific articles in national and international journals with a strong addition to scientific research. Her specialty is taxonomy of marine fish larvae ecology specialties and in relation to oceanographic and meteorological processes in their distribution in the Mesoamerican Reef System. She has also used molecular analysis to identify eggs and larvae throughout the Gulf of Mexico to Brazil and is part of the barcode group in Connectivity. She is recognized for leading the Mesoamerican Reef Connectivity Exercise, ECOME, for her sigils in Spanish, this year being the 15th effort. Her work strengthens the link between science and fisheries in Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and Guatemala, and how they are connected. Welcome, Lourdes. Thank you very much for being here. I will leave the word for you so that you can present the rest of our panel speakers. Thank you very much, Liz, for this invitation, for organizing all of this. I think is very important for us that have worked on this for more than 13 consecutive years, this monitoring in ECOME. So I have the great pleasure of having representation in each of the countries because ECOME is ECOME because we have this representation in each of the countries. So I'm going to start from the South, thanking Giselle Brady. Her participation, she is Executive Director of the Bay Island Conservation Association in Roatan. And she is in charge, of course, of the continuity of many of the researchers carried out in the Bay Island area and has been a fundamental pillar for ECOME to be replicated in the three islands, in Guanaja, in Utila, and of course in Roatan. That has the record in Honduras in participation. Thank you, Giselle, for being here, for coming here with us, and for your leadership. Then we have Sergio Hernandez. He is a coastal marine analyst of the Natural Protected Areas Council, CONAP, from the Punta de Manabique Wildlife Refuge in Guatemala. Sergio has powered through untiring with this methodology to give follow-up in the reef environments that are very complicated. Let me tell you that the part in Guatemala is one of the ones that has those deep reefs that the monitoring effort is a lot harder. So I thank Sergio for being here and for that passion that he always shows. We then have Honorio Santos. He is the biologist in charge of the monitoring in the marine reserve of Bacalar Chico as part of the fisheries department of Belize. And Honorio has participated in various ECOME sessions and knows perfectly well the methodologies, the applied methodologies, and has gotten all the training, all the necessary training in this monitoring for a lot of years. So I thank Honorio for being here with us to comment important aspects of Belize. And finally, we have Lidia Granados representing Mexico. She is department head of Parque Nacional Isla Contoy from the National Protected Areas Commission of Mexico, CONAM. Lidia has spearheaded not only the part of support to carry out the ECOMEs, she has of course done many things, but focusing in ECOME, she has participated very, very closely in the area of Puerto Morelos, and now mostly in the area of Isla Cancun, Isla Contoy. I thank all of you for your participation and for your time for this webinar. Thank you very much. And well, I think we can begin. Liz, if you don't have any more comments, we can start with the presentations of each one of the speakers, and the agenda would be they carry out the presentation, they can finish the presentation, and we can keep all the questions all the way to the end, so that if we have any questions from the audience or any comments. I also need to give my presentation. Sorry, I need to give some context for all of you. For all of the people that are in this webinar and don't know really what this exercise is about. I know that there's a lot of you that already know about it, but we might have some people to which I want to dedicate a little bit of time so I can give you a little bit more information on the generalities. So I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. If you can confirm that you are watching, yes, everything is okay. Okay, so this is the main screen it's not going to take a lot of time. ECOME, lessons and challenges of the regional monitoring of fish recruitment in the Mesoamerican region. I am Lourdes Vasquez and I work in ECOSUR. I have been working here for 28 years. And out of those, almost 15 have been dedicated to give follow-up in larvae recruitment in the MAR. Okay, so these are the colleagues that I have already presented and with which I'm very thankful because they have dedicated, well, first of all, they accepted this invitation to present information regarding each of their countries because of course, within each country, we we of course have different natural protected areas. So to each and all of you, thank you very much. So, okay, let's talk about recruitment of post-larval recruitment of fish in the Mar. For those of you that are not very, you don't know very well the cycle or the reproductive cycle of fish. There is a pelagic stage that I'm not going to talk about, where we have eggs, larvae that are all in the open ocean, but all of these stages must come to the shore. And this coming back to shore, when they are already strengthened larvae that had already been in the open water for a long time, are going to come to the coast to colonize and recruit. That is the first recruitment process and is about what we work on with ECOME. And so, like my slide says, recruitment is an additive process. It is adding of new recruits. It is essential for the continuation of marine population, obviously through the incorporation of new young individuals, which are called recruits, that have gone through different stages and different complex situations to be able to arrive to the coasts. And this is the result of reproductive activity of fish. Okay, so this is the way our methodology that we have adapted in the Mesoamerican Reef to work and to carry out this initiative and to carry out this monitoring effort. There are many other methodologies to study recruitment that have advantages and disadvantages, but this one was selected as a first approach that we could carry out in all 4 countries. Why? Because the advantages that this method has, first, it's very economic, it's very cheap compared to other methodologies for sampling recruitment. It is selective. It's selective because in this methodology, not all species that are in the environment don't come in. So it's proved, and it has been proved since 2004, 2005, a lot before we started ECOME. Another advantage of this methodology is that it captures the organisms, and generally they will be alive. It's very rare that the organisms die during this sampling, because they come in to find refuge and protection, and if it's handled with care, it's 80% likely that the organism will be alive. And if we already know it, we can return it to the environment, taking, of course, the important information, registering all the data, and return them to the water. It is relatively easy to carry out in the field. And this methodology, which was selected to be carried out throughout the whole Mesoamerican Reef, is standardized because we use exactly the same technology as collecting methods, and they're carried out in a simultaneous way. So this is the geographic cover that we have from 2013 to 2025. The red dots are all the areas that they all started in different moments. Some areas started together, other areas started adding themselves little by little. For example, Yumbalam, right at the north of Mexico, was added in 2015. And the ones that are in yellow are the ones that recently became part of this effort, which is the one in the north is the national protected area of the western coast of Isla Mujeres and Punta Cancun, Punta Nizuc, close to Puerto Morelos. And in the south, we welcome From Honduras, the wildlife refuge in Barrasquero Sagrado that joined this initiative as well. We have areas that also stopped being part of this effort because even though they're part of the map, Turnef is no longer part. We weren't able to give continuity to the effort, and tied marine reserve in Honduras. They stopped participating in ECOME, but hopefully they will become part of it again. So this is a sample that I show you here of all the post-larval stages of fish in the mar. Well, sorry, not all of them actually, but the most representative that we will be able to catch. Because of the space, I can't really add all of the other species, but it doesn't mean that it is only these. We have some snappers, we have some some grunts, we have some parrotfish, we have some mojarras, we have some barjacks, logically, we have some puffers, the wrasses as well, and the sargassum fish, that their appearance has been, of course, very frequent in the last year. And well, we kind of imagine why. Of course, the sawfish as well. Larvae from the Monacanthidae family, very, very representative of our Mesoamerican region. So for the moment, we have a registry of 7,000. I will correct because that number is not accurate. It's 7,492 recruits from 2013 to 2025 from represented 48 families and more than 92 taxons. And I put the word taxons because we still need to specifically identify different species, especially the wrasses and the grunts, and because of their size and because they are also present in sites like Guatemala where it's hard for us to come. So in this chart, in this graph, you can see these maximum points as an index of the larvae that were found in each ECOME. So it's like an index that will give us an idea of what we have seen throughout. Oh, here we have I want to make clear that the 15th ECOME is not added in this graph because we're still revising all of the material. In the lower part, you will see, well, you can see ECOME 6, for example. I want to clear that this event was very unexpected, that if we didn't have monitoring, we wouldn't have noticed it if we didn't have this monitoring, just by general observations from the managers, because they see it. But it was an event where there was an explosion, a massive explosion of puffers, of Tetradontidae, ubotetes, that we also know them like that. In ECOME 11, we also had a similar increase in Apogonidae in Belize. And in the lower part, there is a table of the amount of marine protected areas that have participated in each of the ECOMEs. The one in 2022, we had 13 marine protected areas participating. It was like the maximum participation, but the last one we did already surpassed this number. And 15 marine protected areas participated this year. In the middle row, you see the months where the ECOME is carried out, generally during the months of September, August, September. It depends on the moon and the moonfall. And of course, during the conditions or when there is hurricane threats, we have had to move them to October. But we did have some during February and March in 2019. And Well, in yellow, you can see the years. These are the families of fish, the more abundant families of fish in the Mesoamerican Reef. Here I did a representation of all of the countries. And we can see that a lot of the post-larval presentation are part of the Carangidae, which are the jacks. The Tetradontides are the puffers. And this large number is because of that massive explosion in specific years I mentioned before. Then you have the grunts, Emulidae, and then the Monacantidos, which are the sawfish, then the Herridae, which are the mojarras, then the Lutanidae, which are the snappers, and for all of us are very, very important to have in their recruitment abundances, to have snappers in their abundance. Also, the parrotfish show up in this methodology of the midwater collector that we use. It's effective for snappers and for parrotfish. Then we have Apogonides, which are basically the fuel for a good health of the ecosystem. Apogonidae are also known as cryptobenthic, also like blennies and Labrisomidae. And then Lucianidas, and we have the sargassum fish. This is the concentration of all of the families, of the more abundant families that are characterized in ECOME. Okay, and I'm going to comment as a conclusion that we have been very very diligent on the continuous training of people. If we have new personnel that comes into natural protected areas, and we carry out these workshops and these trainings before the data collection sessions. We have had 2 sessions in 2016 and 2019 of meetings of the whole network. We know that it's important to continue this monitoring. I say that it is, but it's also, we also want to know the opinion of the speakers here. Every area has their own collection of that has been generated through the ECOMEs, and this is a high value, and we must give it the care that it requires. And with this, we are very available for the necessary training. We want to train more people and have people make it a part of their life. Something I want to compliment as well with the speakers. But yeah, there are a lot of ways in which the ECOME exercise is justified. It's not a common exercise. It's an exercise that goes beyond borders of the 4 countries that are united in one movement using the same methodology and in an environment that is more and more affected by different threats like contamination, either microplastics or any other overfishing, invasive species like, of course, the lionfish. And what will you tell me about the changes in the temperature of water in the ocean? Climate change is also a big factor here, and it's an important stress factor for the system. And yeah, well, all of this information has set a baseline and has documented those post-larval species that recruit in the Mesoamerican region. They're very valuable stages. Not many people really work with these stages because it's very complex. And so here I want to thank to all the people, starting, of course, by our speakers that are representing their personnel and the people in the areas, the technical personnel, students, and fishermen that have supported this effort. Jose Angel Cou, which he is my right hand in ECOME. Whenever you have a doubt, you can talk to him, please. And Eloy, Estrella, Malca, Laura Carrillo, that are co-responsible and have been part of this. Thank you, Estrella, for all the analysis that we have presented in this moment. And here you can see the logos of all the organizations. And to all of you, thank you very much. And I think this is all from me. And I'm going to give the word to, I don't know, Liz. If you agree that we can give the word to Sergio. Yes, Sergio, please go ahead. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. We're going to present the part corresponding to the main results in the ECOME in Guatemala. Can you see my screen? Yes, we can see it, but please put it in presentation mode. Yes, yes, we are ready. Okay. Good morning to all. My name is Sergio Hernandez. I am the coastal marine analyst of Punta Manabique, and today I'm going to be representing both natural protected areas, both Manabiques, as well as Rio Sarstún multiple use area established by Fundaeco. Here in the first slide, we see the people that have participated from Fundaeco to carry out the ECOMES. Junior Rodriguez, Roberto Morales, some EPCistas. We didn't put specific name because they change. They changed with time. They are doing their studies, their university studies. In Punta de Manabique, we have Marlon Vasquez, myself, Sergio Hernandez, and Miguel Maldonado. Okay, so first, ECOME, both for Fundaeco as for CONAMP, has been a challenge because, as we will see ahead, their costs to carry them out are high. Generally, we get support from other projects. For example, in Punta de Manabique, in 2013, we had some funding from the National Conservation Funds. We were able to carry out the monitoring in 2015 and 2016 through the project of marine conservation resources in Central America that was supported by the German bank, KfW. In 2020, as a regional project led by Ecosur and Mar Fund. In 2021 to 2023, from the project of coastal biodiversity, funded by IUCN. And from 2023 to 2025, we had the support of private initiative from both Marfund and AgroCaribe. In the case of Fundaeco, per project, they have been able to get funding for each of the ECOME. In 2013, they had a project from New England Biolac. In 2016, from Fundaeco's own resource. From 2017 to 2019, from a Marfund project. And in 2022 to 2023, from again with Fundaeco's own resource. And in the last 2 years, 2024 to 2025, through a French fund. So for us, both for the monitoring in Manabique and in Hungara, it represents high costs because the points where we have the reef systems are very far from shore. In the first map that you see in the left side, You can see Punta de Manabique in that first point that I'm showing is Cabo Tres Puntas. Here we have 6 monitoring stations. And down here we have Bajo Estero Lagarto, which is the second point where we have 4 stations. In the case of Sarstún, Punta has all their stations where you can see the red circle. That is Puntara. It's a reef patch, and it's also a little bit far away from the coast. So the cost of gas for getting to the place is the largest cost for carrying out ECOME. And also because the reefs that are in the area are very influenced, for example, in Fungara, by the water that comes from Rio Sarstún, and in Manabique, because of its closeness to another river, as we will see ahead. So the characteristics of the reefs for ECOME in Guatemala, the first 2 pictures show the example of Cabo Tres Puntas, and the pictures in the bottom represent the reefs of Fundara. So the average depth where these reefs are located are about in a depth of about between 15 and 30 meters. These reefs are in shape of like a barrier reef and some coral patches that are very far from the coast. There is a high dominance of hard corals and some soft corals. In the hard corals, dominates the genus Montastrea or Vesala Estrella, the agaricias, which are the like plates and leaves, like lettuce corals, and parades, which are the finger corals, and Diploria strigosa. These reefs are mostly adapted to high sedimentation, product of all the water that comes in from the rivers, like Motagua and the Rio Sarastun River. And through many ECOMEs, not only the high sedimentation rate, but also there are processes that even the reef itself has created resilience, and we've had to manage with a lot of current depending on the time of the year when we carry out the ECOMEs. So with the species that we have identified of importance for fishing, of the larvae that we have been able to identify, we have jags, we have groupers, snappers, and some ecological importance like sturgeons and parrotfish. The importance of ECOME for Guanabique is that we can have a follow-up of these species. Here we have some pictures of what we have captured. In Punta de Manabique, we also have a little bit of funding for the area. So for feeding, for food, we spend around $105. For gas, we spend in the 8 days around 1,300 quetzales, which is about $176. In housing, since in Manabique the distance is quite far, we do need somewhere to sleep. So we have a budget of around 1,500 quetzales, which is around $196. And from other expenses that are like buying the hooks, or changing the nets to the collectors. We have an average of 300 quetzales that are about $39. In the case of Sarstún, for food, they spend a little bit less, an average of 600 quetzales that are about $78. In gas, they spend around 4,000 quetzales, which is like $523. And with other expenses, as I already mentioned, changing the ropes, changing the buoys, also the hooks, changing the mesh for the collectors, an average of 500 quetzales, which is around of $65. We have been able to capture species of fish, as mentioned, as Dr. Lourdes mentioned, from, for example, snappers that are have a high economic importance for communities, for the fishing communities, both for Manabique. I don't know if, sorry, the internet for him cut off, but these species are of commercial importance. But there are also other ecological important species that we have been able to record. And this corresponds to about, like, maybe in Manabique and Fungara, the abundances are not very high, but there is a high diversity of species, and that is very important. And the main results for Guatemala is that we have registered recruitment in 2 marine protected areas in Guatemala. In both, we have a registered around 13.5 years, because Fundaeco and Fundana has participated in all of the ECOMEs. And Manabique, we have only been able to participate in 12. We have been able to collect non-conventional organisms that we usually find in the collectors, and also in the weights that we haven't seen in other marine protected areas. Here, for example, at the top right, we have a sea urchin, and in the last ECOME that we just finished, in ECOME 15, we were able to collect a seahorse and a baby barracuda, a juvenile barracuda. And in Fundaeco and Fungara, they have been able to capture this species that is Aliocheris socialis, that is a wrasse, a very important wrasse, because the registry was also only established for Belize, but through the ECOMES, we have seen the presence of this species in the reef patches in Guatemala. So their distribution range has expanded, and it is important that this is the valuable information that this study has given us. We have also been able to connect and share the information, and at the Mesoamerican Reef level, we have had this link not only with Ecosur, but also with other partners from other natural protected areas. And the presence of Alicoeris socialis, for example, as I mentioned, it's a wrasse that had only been reported for Belize, and now we know that it's also in Guatemala. ECOMES have also worked to be able to elaborate project proposals, and in the case of Manabique and Fundaeco, it has been information that has helped us improve and update the management plans of our marine protected areas. Because the data that we collect supports the richness that both marine protected areas of these areas. So it is very important to know this. We also have in Manabique the most collected species were the Carrangidae, which are the jacks, and then the Labridos, which are wrasses, the Luthanidae, which are the snappers, and then the Tetradontidae. And then in Sarastún, we have Emulidae, which are the grunts, the Labridae, which are the wrasses, Serranidos. We also have other important species like Blenidae, and Labrisomidae, that are species that are important for the reef health. So in total, in abundance, for Sarstone River, we had an abundance of 228 organisms, while in Punta de Manabique, we had an abundance of 1,409 species organisms. The important thing is that we have a diversity of families. In Sarsun, we have 12 families, 17 genera, 27 taxons, and they have participated in 15 ECOME. And in Manabique, we have up to 11 families from 16 genera and 20 taxons, and we have participated in 12 ECOMEs. So the important of this information is that these marine protected areas from Guatemala have a high abundance of jack, grunts, and in case of the Labridae, which are the cleaner fish, we have some snappers and some reef species for reef health, like damselfish. ECOMES have also been able to give us information to monitor fish species and water quality, and as well as the acquiring an equipment to measure climate conditions, which have complemented other monitoring efforts, and as well for Fundaeco, because the monitoring that they did with fish and water quality, having the information and this registry and being able to manage resources to be able to continue with these monitoring. So that are very important for the management of marine protected areas. And amongst the challenges to continue with the ECOMES is to have funding for the projects, because the costs are high, but also consider the climate conditions to carry out ECOMES, because since the sites, the reef sites that we monitor are far away from the coastal line, when the weather isn't good, we have had a lot of trouble in collecting the data. So this is a factor to keep in mind to continue carrying out the ECOME. And in the case of CONAP, for Punta de Manabique, the ECOMES we have incorporated into our annual operation plans, and we already have that institutional monitoring, and we have assumed it as another activity that we have to carry out as the marine protected area management. And we have been able to have a little bit more support to continue with this line of doing the ECOME monitoring. I would just like to thank all of you for your attention. Thank you very much, Sergio, for your presentation. We're now gonna have Giselle so that we don't have to be rushing. So we have a little bit of time. Giselle, if you can keep the word, if you can take the microphone and carry out your presentation. Good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, to be able to talk to you about the ECOMES in Honduras. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so as Dr. Lourdes, I am the executive director of PICA in the Bay Islands area. We are an NGO, an environmental NGO that has been working for more than 35 years, and we are co-managers of 4 natural protected areas in Honduras, specifically in the Bay Island area. So for the reef connectivity exercise in the Mar, we have implemented it in the 3 islands. And this year, FUCSA, that is the foundation of Correo y Salado, was also started implementing in the north coast of Honduras. From the beginning, we have been a part of this effort, starting in Roatan, then expanding to the monitoring to the different islands in Utila, and more recently in around 2020 in Wanaha. We have around 10 to 12 sites in each of the islands. So really, this monitoring has been a very important experience for us. Annually, we receive training, continuous training of our personnel, as well as institutional support through ECOSUR, as well as the Miami University. And this is really, this is brought for us, this is one of our first monitoring project in our research for the organization. And from everything that we have learned with ECOSUR, we were able to expand this monitoring as an organization. Those training, that continuous training, has been immense support in different ways, not only to be able to implement the ECOME on itself, which was of course part of the training, but also identification of larvae and being able to present the data in different conferences, and expanding the subject on what else can we do, what else can we study with this monitoring, and to really get to know the larvae of reef fish that are entering our natural protected areas. And so from different projects, we were able to strengthen our lab by buying the necessary equipment to be able to analyze and identify the larvae, to be able to implement other specific studies on the subject. And finally, we consider that some of the major accomplishments were we have our collection of all the larvae collected throughout the whole 3 islands. So joining and being able to come together to carry out these annual monitoring has been exceptional. And additionally, we also, the opportunities that we've had of being able to publish some of the data that we have collected throughout time with this monitoring, and some of the new species that we have been able to find. All of this also, of course, with Dr. Lourdes' support and her team, to be able to know more and to be able to have this information, to be able to manage our natural protected areas in a better way. So, of course, in this subject, sorry, my My daughter is here at home because we don't have classes because of the storm. Sorry. As in all research and all monitoring, there are different challenges, and this is not the exception. So for NGOs, environmental NGOs, we have a continuous change in personnel that really that depending on the way that we handle this affects the continuity of these types of monitoring. So of course, to have that availability of ECOSUR, to have continuous training has really allowed us to continue carrying out these monitoring efforts and to able to have those training. And of course, some things that we have done to be able to continue with these monitoring is to ensure that the volunteers that we get, which are a lot, and thanks to them, we have been able to cover the more work that is needed in the natural protected area. So we have been able to have not only the BICA staff, but also the volunteers, because if for any reason like lack of funding, we can't carry out this monitoring, we know that at least that volunteer can help us out. And we also ensure that all of the staff in all levels is also trained to be able to cover um like for example times when the assigned staff can't cover. So additionally to that, is also of course ensuring that we have the budget to carry out the monitoring, and with this we need to include it in the annual budget of the organization to be able to execute it. And this of course, we had a bit of problems with this because we started a lot with funding. We tried to include it. Well, of course, Marvin has been one of our major donors for this monitoring because throughout the years in the different islands, we've had funding from different years and from Marvin that we have been able to include the expenses to carry out this monitoring. And additionally, um, Dr. Lourdes is also looking for small fundings to cover like little things like gasoline and other little things. So what we get is around $700 per island to be able to implement it across all the 3 islands. And so annually, it's not a high cost, but when we are a small NGO and our priority is to have any funding that are not attached to subventions, that goes to salaries because sometimes it's hard to find funding for salaries. So we have trying to cover those expenses through by corporative funding or other types of funding uh, to stop having this issue. Um, so for Bika, we have been um, part of for 14 years in this monitoring. We've been uh, carried out around 29 ECOMEs, sometimes depending on the year. We have done 2 ECOMEs. More recently, we've only done 1 per year. And we have collected from 25 different families an abundance of around 1,176 organisms registered. The interesting part for the Bay Island area, um, the FUCSA data that are still from this last year, that data is not part of this year. These are only the data for the Bay Islands, which were done in the previous monitor. So in the analysis that we have carried out, it is very interesting that in the site with special protection, Turtle Harbor, which is in Utila, we have had more families registered, even though we have had less ECOMES carried out. So we believe that if we increase the participation in Utila, we believe that that number of families is going to increase because there's a high biodiversity in this area. In comparison with the other two islands. So here, there's just another way to see the same data that I presented before in abundance. As I mentioned before, and as Dr. Lourdes we had that really big increase in the family of Tetradontite, which are the pufferfish. Up to date in Roatan, we always have a high increase of this family showing when we do the collection. And with this, I just want to thank all of the staff and all the volunteers that I don't have all the names here. A lot more because we, of course, have been carrying this out for 14 years. But really, without them and without the volunteers, all of this would not be possible because the implementation schedule is very, very early in the morning. And since it's with the moon, that can happen in any day of the week. And if they didn't have the availability and that attitude, that positive attitude to be able to carry this out, we wouldn't be where we are right now and have the information that we do. And with this, I just want to thank you all for your attention and any question at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Giselle, for your presentation and for showing us the situation in the Bay Islands area. And now I'm going to give the word to Honorio. Honorio, so you can give your presentation about your area and taking into account that we want to be a little bit quick to save a little bit of time so we have time for questions from the audience. So thank you very much, Honorio. Welcome. Hello, good morning to all of you. Thank you, Lourdes. My name is Honorio Santos. I am a marine biologist of the Belize Fisheries Department. I have been assigned to the Bacalar Chico Marine Protected Area. And I'll talk to you about the challenges and lessons learned that we have had in Belize associated to the ECOME. So Belize has participated in 14 of the 15 monitorings that have been carried out since 2013 to 2025. Several of the marine areas, protected areas, have been part of the ECOME, the Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve. That is here, this green one in the north is the one that has participated the most, has participated in 9 different ECOMEs. We have areas that were added later, like Southwater Cay and Glover's Reef Marine Reserve, that have participated, that were added in the past years. We used to have other areas like Turnef Atoll Marine Reserve that started at the beginning, and Port Honduras Marine Reserve that sadly they don't make part of ECOME anymore. So what is the value of this monitoring? We know that it is focused in the fish recruitment of the coastal marine ecosystems and all the larvae that are coming to the shores to recruit. It gives us important information about ecological connectivity between the marine protected areas around the Mesoamerican Reef System. It strengthens the planning, the spatial planning, and the management decisions of the protected areas. And also in Belize, the results help us identify those critical recruitment areas and those priority zones for conservation. As long as, of course, we have these results available. And of course, it would help support the adaptive management of the marine resources and completing the objectives of the Blue Bond and the connectivity network of the Mesoamerican Reef. Some of the difficulties that we have found while carrying out ECOME is the coordination and logistics of and the availability of funding of resources. This also includes not having enough boats, enough gas, and the maintenance of the equipment. We know that we're talking about both economic resources, but also personnel resources and boats. And we know that we need all of these to be carrying out all these monitoring along with all the other countries in the MAR. Another challenge is that it's hard to carry out these monitorings because of the lack of resources, because they kind of competed with the activities of the marine protected area, like vigilance. Another thing was unstable weather conditions because of bad weather. This caused that some of the collectors were lost or damaged. And it was also very unsafe to go out to the ocean with bad weather conditions. And there were days when we couldn't collect the larvae. Another difficulty was that fish larvae are very, very small, and sometimes they look very similarly. So it difficults the ID of the species in the field. We got to an agreement that we need a catalog of all the post-larval of all the fish that includes the genetic validation for a precise identification. And finally, but I think one of the most important is that the project depends on limited funding from MAR Fund. And we know that having enough funding is important to carry out these events for us to carry them out successfully. Regarding funding and resources, we know that we have essential resources that we need and funding to carry out successful monitoring efforts. So the team and the resources that we have and the materials that we have right now in Belize, they're still in good conditions, but these are the ones that were given to Glover's Field Marine Reserve and Saltwater Key Marine Reserve. But probably we are going to need to get new ones for both teams and one or two new collectors in case we lose or damage one of the existing ones. It would also be really great if we were able to have an additional monitoring kit for the participation of another marine protected area in Belize. And this way have at least 3 marine protected areas in Belize participating in the monitoring for ECOME. It would be ideal as well to get things like buoys, ropes, weights, this to avoid having to find them on the beach. I didn't mention before, but this is one of the difficulties that we had was the people at Glover's Fields had to be finding all of these resources wherever they could because there weren't any available. And as I mentioned before, of course, it's essential to have availability of gas and in one way or another funding to be able to buy food. In this table that you see in the corner in your right, you can see an estimate of what it means to carry out this monitoring, this ECOME monitoring, in one marine protected area. This is an estimate for a team of around 4 people for 8 monitoring days. We have the feeding, that is an estimate of around $20 a day for a total of $640. For 8 days, this is just making the food at the field, because each of these areas that participate have their own staff that are in the field always. On the other hand, we have the gasoline consumption for the boats. This we have a minimum of 5 gallons per day, which is around 19 liters. And for ADAs, it's around 40 gallons, which is around this amount of gallons of gas. And if we multiply by the average cost, that is the price of gasoline in Belize, it will be around $260 of gas. And in the total cost, that costs gas and food is around 900 for each marine protected area. So experiences and results. So talking with our colleagues from the other areas, we have reached to the conclusion that the methodology is very simple. It has created very positive experiences, and it's always very, very positive to have new ways to monitor our resources in Belize. And we know that the data collected was crucial. It's crucial for Belize and also for the Mesoamerican region. We know that it's very important to have this data, and we always try to have quality data and that they actually represent what we have in each of the areas. The work has been very successful, even though sometimes it's been affected by environmental factors like the weather and ocean conditions, like I mentioned before. And we have also reached the conclusion that to improve the efficiency in the field, it would be good to have from the beginning a complete team and standardized and strictly address funding for improving the equipment like buoys and ropes and for any other needs that we might have. And it's very important, like the things that we use, like ethanol. We also, my colleague suggested that having buoys of one size and one color would significantly facilitate, make easier the identification of buoys, so that we could spend more time in the important part, which is the collection of data and not finding the buoys. Some of the results that we had in Belize throughout the 14 ECOMEs was that, as you can see on the table, more than 50% were apugonides, onorio. We have other families of fish like tetradontidae, carangidae, like snappers. Onorio, we can't really see your screen. It's frozen from the lias. Perspectives, future recommendation. I think he's having a little bit of issue with his audio and slides. Your slide is frozen in funding and equipment. If you can see that it goes, try or just go directly to the conclusions page. I think my signal is not very good. One moment, please. Honorio, if you can just comment without sharing your screen so that we can take advantage of the time, so that Lydia can have some time at the end. So the future perspective of ECOME and recommendations, we have to strengthen communication of the results in the proper sharing of the results to make for decision makers. We then want to link the results of ECONE with other indicators from the Marine Spatial Plan to maximize its strategic relevance, as well as in the Blue Bond. As I mentioned, add another marine protected area in Belize to the monitoring sessions so that we can have a better spatial representation, and the guarantee of stable and sustainable funding for carrying out the monitoring. Um, uh, Continue working on technical sharing between Ecosur and the Belize Fisheries Department and the co-managers. Complement the monitoring with other existing efforts to have better interpretation of the data and the results of the ECOME. And finally, to develop internal capacity for the analysis of the biological data through training and workshops for Belize. And finally, I just want to thank first to Ecosur and Marfon for their support to the moment to carry out this monitoring. And we know that it's very important. And to thank, of course, to all of my colleagues in the fisheries department, and the ones that are in the field collecting all the data, as well as Terrell, Dilana, and the people in Southwater Key, Kevin and their team in Glover's Reef, and the team in Bacalar Chico. And I would like to thank Joel Verde and their collaborating team from SAC. And they had participated before in the ECOME in Bacalar Chico. And last but not least, of course, thank Tasa and Tide for the Puerto Honduras Marine Reserve that were the first ones to start this effort. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you, Honorio, for your presentation. And we're going to go quickly to with Lydia. Thank you so much, Honorio. Lydia, are you ready? Yes. We just need to make it as quick as possible to be able to uh, have enough time. Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Lydia. I don't know if you can see my screen yet. We see, can you please put it in presentation mode? And we also don't have your camera. Okay, yes. Can you see it now? No, you're not in presentation mode yet. Yes. Okay. Good morning to all of you. I am biologist Lidia Granados, and I have been part of CONAMP for more than 25 years. Currently, I work in Isla Contoy, a main site in the Mexican Caribbean. Today, as well as all my other colleagues that have presented, I want to share with you some of the lessons learned and challenges that we have faced while being part of the reef connectivity exercise in the MAR. As we know, functional connectivity is key because it will allow us to see how organisms are moving and how energy and nutrients are moving throughout the coastal marine ecosystems. This connectivity, this fundamental connectivity for biodiversity, has led us to understand how fish recruits in the natural protected areas are found in all of these protected areas. ECOME has been a regional effort that started from 2013, and throughout all these years has generated very valuable information, focused, of course, in fish recruitment in coastal marine ecosystems, as well as participate science for conservation. This project, led by Ecosur through Dr. Lourdes, in which various marine protected areas have participated, both government or regional from Quintana Roo, and from our neighboring countries, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. So when we talk about the marine protected areas, that they work as strategic points throughout the Mesoamerican Reef, what we mean is that really they all make part of a network of marine ecosystems that are shared within the four countries. All these areas have a very fundamental role because they connect habitats, critical habitats, coral reefs, mangroves, seagrasses, and coastal dune, and they also permit the flow of fish, larvae, fish, turtles, and even birds, and they keep crucial marine ecosystem functions. But they also work as conservation and coordinated efforts. So throughout all these 13 years, we have seen that this ecological connectivity is vital. And we know that all the marine protected areas do not work in an independent way. They create a live network that sustains the health of the reef. In this little table, we can see all the areas that have participated in Mexico. During this exercise, we have seen that we have generated very solid information on the patterns of larvae distribution, reef connectivity, and the population dynamics that exist in this system, and that is key. 7 marine protected areas in Mexico have participated in this exercise. Parque Nacional Isla Contoy and Parque Nacional Xcalac have been the ones that have participated in the most. ECOMEs, 14 each, and other areas have been incorporated with time. Throughout this time, the monitoring has allowed to recognize different spatial and time distributions to identify these sites with higher larvae concentration and how they are connected to the different areas in the Mexican Caribbean. These results, as my colleagues have mentioned before, translate into a better decision-making process for the management and conservation, leading us to have better decision-making processes in the marine protected areas and in general in all the Mesoamerican Reef System. The results of the monitoring of recruitment in the MAR is, in total, we have registered more than 3,000 organisms recruit belonging to more than 25 families of fish. The ones that we highlight are, and the ones that we highlight are the jacks, the puffers, the grunts, mojarras, snappers, parrotfish, blennies, species that are key in the ecosystem dynamics of the reefs. This monitoring has been carried out continuously in all of the 7 areas: Jumbalam, Isla Contoy, Puerto Morelos, Siancan, in the 2 sites in Siancan, Punta Allen and Punta Herrero, in the Biosphere Reserve in the Mexican Caribbean in Mahahual, in the Natural Protected Area of Xcalac, and Manatee Reserve in Chetumal. Some of the main achievements that we've had throughout this 10 years of continuous work is that since 2013 to the date, we have registered more than 3,179 species belonging to 37 families. We have currently 6 natural protected areas in Mexico, and we have the need of bringing back Siancan Reserve, that historically has been a key area in the monitoring. We also highlight the new addition of the natural protected area of western coast of Isla Mujeres, Punta Cancún, and Punta Nizuc. In this effort, more than 275 people have participated in Mexico, from technicians, researchers, students, and volunteers of different communities, that without them, we would really not be able to carry out this monitoring. As in the other countries, we have funding needs, and always difficulties are linked to that. Lack of gas, boats that are properly working, equipment. But even through that, this has helped the coordination between areas in Mexico to work together, and along with the other countries of the MAR. And with this, we have established community community-based effort to be able to contribute to marine conservation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lidia, for to be able to share this in a very condensed way. Questions of time, we know that there's so much more to say. I don't know if Liz has any questions that are in the chat. No, right now we don't have any questions through this. All the presentations have been very clear. And the conclusion of all of this, what would it be? Clear conclusions. ECOME that has been carried out for 13 years. We have to be clear, 13 consecutive years and 15 ECOME. And because we've had years when we've had double ECOMEs. If any of the speakers wants to say, is it worth continuing this effort in a short, medium, and long term? I'm going to share one slide that I had to be able to be more precise in this part. So even though we know that we have achieved important things in the marine protected areas, we're facing great external pressures like massive tourism, marine contamination, illegal fishing, and increasing boat traffic. We know that these activities, of course, affect the ecological processes of the ecosystems that we want to conserve. One important challenge is the limited coordination between marine protected areas that are next to each other. And this difficults the implementation of activities at a regional level. But we also face a big challenge of integrating fully this information that we generate, included, of course, the ECOME, in the management plans and in the way that we are making decisions. Because the real way for science to be translated into conservation actions, we must do this integration of all of the information that we are gathering from these monitoring efforts. And lastly, we need to we need to we need to ensure sustainable financing and technical strengthening so we can keep this monitoring in a long term, so that we can have consistent data that permit um, finding these trends. So I consider that we do need to continue the effort. It has been the work of many people, especially having the participation of community from students and volunteers and different people, because we know that the resources are very limited. And now that we have this support and we have created this network, um, and they are part of the conservation efforts that we carry out in the marine protected area, because many of us already include them in our annual operational plans. It is very important to continue with this monitoring and and make sure that this information is really being applied in the management of these areas. Thank you very much, Lydia. Here we have a question from Mercedes that I think she had raised her hand. She says, have you noticed changes in species richness throughout these years? Um, I don't know if anybody wants to answer. I had given the word. Okay, so mhm, what we have noticed is not really a significant change in richness, but in species abundance. So we have years where certain species have um, have more presence, which before we had seen in low numbers, and then we have these peaks that are telling us something. This is what we have been seeing. This is what we saw with the puffers, for example, that the signal was very continuous, even visual, from Puerto Morelos all the way to Honduras. And Honduras, in the case of Roatan, that had the maximum peak. And that was a constant. And this cannot be possible to visualize if you don't have a monitoring. So, regarding number of species, we haven't really seen a big significant change, but yes, on the abundance of the species throughout time. Well, if you have more questions, please um, send emails to us. I'm very interested and very thankful that you made this question. And of course, each area has their own dynamic, their own set of species and families. We're talking at family level. Um, okay. Hello, hello. Yes, thank you very much. I'm Norma from Contoy. I I hadn't seen that I had the name of Mercedes in the Zoom, but I think very much, yes, and I think your question very much. I think that Jose Angel also has a question. I don't know if we have time. Liz, I don't know if we have more time for questions. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Because I would rather, let me see, where is this question? Jose Angel says, what do you think about monitoring in other months of the year to register recruitment of other potential families of importance that have not been registered in your areas? Well, this is not for me. This is a question for you. What do you think? What do you think about doing this? Because ideally, when we started all of this, the intention was to do monitoring twice a year in contrasting months because we know that there's recruitment of some species in some part of the year and species that have recruitment in other parts of the year. So it is very important. Um, and so we would have to know if there is that interest in doing it or if we mostly focus on giving it a formal continuity in a more calm way with the observations that we already have. So anyone that wants to answer can contribute. Um, with that subject, I think that to have continuity in the long term, I think it's very important to have specific sites and to do it in the way that we have been doing it. And this, of course, taking into account all the difficulties that we face. But what he's asking is also very important is what we is when we realize of other studies that we could be doing. And for example, monitorings that we did with light traps to see what other species and other recruits were entering the natural protected area. So yes, there are a lot of opportunities to be able to do that with specific studies. But and yes, of course, if we had the money, we would be able to do it. Um, but to be able to, I think it's very important to have a minimum amount of sites, a minimum amount of samples taken to have that continuity in the long term, which is very, very important. Yes, Giselle, I agree with you completely. Um, as I said in my presentation, this is a very simple methodology to have information on fish recruitment. There are, of course, other methods, but the other methods might be more complicated because they need a lot of work. They need very highly qualified people that are dedicated for this. Because, for example, if you use a light trap like you have used before, they bring a lot of material uh, to the trap. So what care is going to be given to these traps? Um, who is going to be taking the data specifically on larvae recruitment? Um, light traps are, for example, very important for parrotfish recruitment as well as surgeonfish. Um, as well as macabe larvae that are part of the um, recreational fishing. And yes, well, we know that there are different techniques, but I agree in that we must at least give it what we've done now in a more coordinated effort and to find a meeting so that we can do that data analysis, even through countries or from the rest. Irving says it would be very useful to be able to share the information from ECOME with other initiatives like seagrass monitoring and other initiatives. Yes, we have tried to do all of that part of sharing the information um, in the comparison of fish observations and monitoring um, with what we have with our methodology, with our regional monitoring. Well, I think it's time for us to conclude. I'm sorry that we don't have more time for questions, but you know about Ecosur. I am very, very thankful. You can send me more questions. Who needs um, any sort of personalized training or any sort of whatever you need for more deep analysis, we still have to carry out the analysis to be able to carry out initial journal, but then have, of course, other papers regarding more specific country trends or families and organism trends. So I am very thankful for Marfund to be able to continue supporting all of our areas. And I invite you all to continue being part of these webinar series. And yes, if you have any question about anything that you might want to ask, please make them get to me. I am very, very grateful with all of you. Very grateful with Liz that organized all of this. Thank you very much to all of you. And que viva the Mesoamerican region. We had, whew, we had, we were short on time, these 90 minutes. Thank you all to all of your questions. For the ones that we weren't able to answer, we're gonna have series to share this information in the following months. So hopefully you can wait for that. Thank you to all of the speakers, to Lourdes, to what it means to carry out each of these comments, and each of the speakers to giving us their insight on the challenges and the lessons learned of this so important exercise for the region and for the represented community. In the name of Marfund, we thank you all for being here, and we wait for you in the next webinar. Congratulations to all of you.